Ladies and gentlemen, this is DSmoke. You've probably seen his face frequently on Apple Music and many other places. He just released Black Habits Deluxe. Black Habits came out last year. He added, how many, four songs you added?
4 tracks, yes.
The connection with music in Africa and wanting to create with, artists, hip hop artists and otherwise in Africa, why is that your trajectory right now? Why is that your path right now? Why do you think that's important right now?
Man, you know what? A lot of it is because there's so much untapped talent out there, and it's twofold. It's like, one, for me personally, just making those connections for myself. I still have yet to do like my DNA test, figure out what country, tribe, all of that I am. So when you get out there, they start claiming you like, oh, you are Igbo, or somebody's like, no, he's Yoruba, So that part of it is personal. And then part of it, like, growing up in LA, everybody knows I incorporate the Spanish into my music. And, it's been a part of my career since I graduated from college, because it's very native to LA. But the further we go back, of course, when I'm reflecting on who I am and what I want to dive into artistically, it's like, you're speaking, and then both are colonized languages. It's English, it still ain't, I'm not spitting in Igbo, you know what I'm saying? But as long as I'm making those connections and making the music, then the rhythm starts to really inform, the root of, my artistry, what I'm doing, So if we building bridges, that's one that has to be built, But when I'm talking about LA, Spanish is very, like, since I was little, it was something that I heard every day. So, from my perspective, it's always been like, damn, how come more Black people don't speak it? You know what I'm saying? Because I had close friends whose parents welcomed me into their home, sat down for meals, where it's like the kid is translating for me because the parent don't speak no English, So just still building those bridges is a big part of what my artistry is about, and I'm a teacher first. I taught for 10 years. So it's like when we make those connections, it's one way of challenging people to think on a larger scale, outside their little box, from whether it be Manchester and Crenshaw or, Vermont and 60th, so.
Since we're talking about the story of Gaspar Yanga and you made sure to put that on the Black Habits album, you always incorporate, as you said, speaking Spanish in your raps and, some of that culture. What made you put that story or at least the title of that song so people could follow that trail and maybe get the story? What made you put that on the album?
One of my mentors is a historian. Like he's part of my management team, but he's just like fascinated by all things history, and he's a DJ by trade. His name is DJ Shanks. So he just knows all these random facts and makes these connections between history, music history, and artistry and what we're trying to do. So he was the one that was like, he nudged me like, hey, like, Smoke, you gotta put something in there about Gaspar Yanga. And to keep it 100, I didn't know, I was like, all right, Shanks, chill out, bro. Like, we going this way, But then when I got that beat, I looked up who Gaspar Yanga was, and I was like, whoa, that's kind of like a personification of the energy that I want at least one track where that energy is on my project. Like, okay, we're going to be warriors on this one, and we're going to build that bridge, push the black and brown line. So the beat plus him having planted that seed made me approach it that way. And of course, I had wrote the whole song by the time I had written the whole song by the time I named it Gaspar Yanga. You know what I'm saying? Because once I heard it and played it back, I was like, hey, this got that energy, So that's how that record came about.
Now, why did you call this track Debo? And with the passing of Tiny Lister, and did that have anything to do with it, or was this called Debo before that, or you was just Deboing on a track, or what was was it all the above?
Got you. It was. Well, the song came before he passed. And so we were really thinking about being like, let's put it out now, because once it got to 2 days later, it would be like, oh, they trying to profit off of that. And so, we're like, let's not do that, so we just waited. But we went back and we reproduced the skit at the beginning after the movie and all that stuff. So it came about before he passed, but it's for sure that energy where it's like we going Debo on him. You know what I'm saying? So that's how it came about, and she took that energy and she went there. So I was like, for sure.
Before the Black Habits release, it was the Inglewood High release in 2019. I always wanted to ask you at that point, after the Rhythm and Flow show, what made you start with your first release being about Inglewood High, and why that kind of imagery of like high school and just bundling Inglewood that way?
A big part of it is that my introduction to the world on the show was the teacher rapper. You know what I'm saying? And so in order for it to not just be this title that people throw around like, oh, that's him, it was like, let me dive into that story a little bit, because I experienced Inglewood, the high school in general, in two capacities: as a student, then came back and taught there. And our legacy there is strong. My older brother, all my brothers went there, and my little nephew is graduating from there in June, with honors and all that. So it's a place that's close to home to, my family first. And then, my hood. It's Inglewood. The way Inglewood's divided, if you're on the south side of Manchester, and I want to say the south side of Manchester and east of Prairie, you go to Morningside, right? And everything else, they send you to Inglewood. It's two high schools, and it's a big rivalry and all that stuff. So everybody from my neighborhood went that way, and funny enough, my pops went to Morningside. So that just allowed me to dive into my city in a way that, because not every song is about the high school itself, but that's kind of a starting point to deal with some things you see in Inglewood. And some of the stories I tell aren't my own. Like Lil Red, for example, that's a character that I saw all the time in my classroom. Like young, super, super smart, ridiculously talented, but heavy in the streets, but looking still like some of the best students I had. Once they realized like I come from a similar place, you could look at their paper and their handwriting was immaculate, that their answers were always there, and they finish first and then kick back, but then they leave the classroom and they gang banging, and you know what I'm saying? So some of that I wanted to deal with, because that the first time I went to Inglewood, I was on my own stuff. Like I was an academic kid, couldn't nobody really push my line because they knew I had hands. I came up boxing, fighting, all that stuff, and I had brothers. So it's like after ninth grade, nobody really sweat us, at least on campus. And then so I just minded my business. I wasn't really worried about everything around me. But when I came back and taught, it's like it's my job to be invested in everything that's going on in their lives and all that stuff. And that's where a lot of, I got a lot of the complexities and dualities of what they're going through, and I put that into the music,
What prompted you to want to step out in the forefront, being behind the scenes, playing keys, writing songs? Your brother was doing the same thing, Sir, who he loves R&B, sings R&B. He's a hip hop head though. You know what I'm saying? You sit down with Sir, you know what I'm saying? He's heavy into it. What made you decide, listen, I want to do this artist thing?
At first, I was cool with being a facilitator, right? So it was like, I want to see my brother win. I want to see my other brother, Davion, win. I want to see my cousin Tiff win, and it was at a moment when Sir got signed to TDE, he goes, you know what I'm saying? My cousin Tiffany is on tour doing her thing. She goes, David's writing songs. And then I'm there like, like when those opportunities came to them, I didn't say like, well, TDE got to come see me, because it's like, those are once in a lifetime things. I'm just like, go for it. Right. So it's really that idle space that I was left with, having this hub where I could record, having a name in Inglewood, and my brothers and them doing well, that I was like, all right, well, let me go for this. I also started off rapping with the homie Chiz, rest in peace. My homie Chiz, throughout our 20s, we put together two projects as a group called Park Circle. And so Park Circle was like, if you imagine us doing our Inglewood back and forth, like Outkast kind of things, a little more conscious, a little more musical, and it was going, and we had momentum, but he had cancer, so that kind of slowed down. So for a minute, you know what I'm saying, RIP. And for a minute, I just got behind Sir, like, all right, go ahead. When he went on tour, I had already been writing a project, and he brought me with him, you know what I'm saying? And he was like, play keys, come on tour with me, and I had started building a team, a management team that could really support us build until we got our own situation. And I consulted them like, hey, should I go or should we stay here and put the project out? They was like, go. You know what I'm saying? So went on tour with Sir. He was opening up for Miguel, and I just learned so much. And that's what had me put together this series called Run the Subtitles. That was me basically rapping in English and Spanish with the subtitles at the bottom, and translating in both languages and stuff, and going over familiar beats so people could be like, oh, this is a cold flip to We Can Freak It, or the next episode, or Explosive by Dre, all these just different 30's a new 20 by Jay-Z, or 30 something, so it's like all of these beats that as soon as they come on, people gonna be like, oh, that's go. I'm spitting Spanish and English verses over them, and it starts picking up on the internet, and that's when Rhythm and Flow caught wind of it. Like,
we gotta get that cleared and get that on the stream. Like, what's up, man? Now's the time, man. You could get that cleared now.
We're gonna see.
In short order, DSmoke is clear that, while we met you later on, this was your calling from early. So you've been acting.
Absolutely.
So it was kind of like, we may have met you later on, but you was early in the game putting in work. You said you've been putting in work since what, 19?
Man, way longer than that. 19 is like when we was like, okay, we're gonna start a label. 19 is when the young adults in my family said, look, we literally going to Home Depot and we converting a garage into a studio. So, but before that, as 8, 9, and 10, me and my brothers, me, Sir, and Davion were signed to DreamWorks under Gerald Busby, who signed Boys to Men and all that.
Yeah,
so we were signed as a boy group, rest in peace. So we were signed as a boy group, little brothers, like the Ferris 3, not the Jackson 5, but us,
yeah.
But he got sick and they ended up dropping us. So we had a relatively normal childhood. And so my uncle at 13 years old, he gave us a whole studio worth of equipment and set it up at our house. So we was producing and writing, in the bedroom from like middle school on. So it wasn't until 19 that we said, all right, we a company. My uncle, submitted the incorporation paperwork, and we was gone, making all the right mistakes. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
blowing money on the wrong stuff, too much equipment, not enough, promotion. Like, we didn't know what we was doing. But, ultimately, we was like, the big homie who managed us for a minute was like, man, you only got to get it right once, because then you gone. You know what I'm saying? So that was our approach.
DSmoke Grammy nominated for Black Habits. How's that feel?
I was so surprised by the nomination because, I just gave myself a longer runway. I was like, I seen greats drop the craziest first project and it take them to the third and fourth to get recognized. So that's, in my mind, it's like, no, we just started the story off how we want to start the narrative. We gonna get to a place where y'all can't deny us. But I think the combination of the music and my presence in the field, I think it was hard for people to deny what was going on, and it amounted in a nomination. So when we got the news, I'm like, whoa, okay, for sure. Well, then we in fast pace.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with the Grammys this year and the nominations. But when you look at that rap album category,
yeah.
They, look, man, it's people in there that you're like,
it's a connoisseur's list, list of rap music, and I appreciate that because when a lot of people think the popularity is the determining factor. A lot of people justify their success by the numbers when the audience isn't aware of what the mechanics behind creating those numbers are from time to time. Mm-hmm. So when you got artists who on their own dime, on their own time, you know what I'm saying, make these kind of things happen, then it's something worth recognizing. And of course you got music makers that are doing the voting and stuff. So you got these people that are like, I'm doing this to taste, not to, popularity or whatnot. So it's artists that stream more than me. It's artists that have more radio play than me. You know what I'm saying? But if we're talking about what I put out, and the company that I'm amongst, you know what I'm saying? It's like I'm proud to see that list. You know, people ask me what's more important, the best new artist or the best rap album. I'm like, best rap album. You know what I'm saying? Because for the culture, I think it says so much, even to just be considered amongst those names.